There she is.
And I'm not gonna unmute it, so it'll stay muted on that one, even though that's awkward. Okay, are we ready? Everyone feels ready? Okay. All right, hello and welcome to our beer and yoga session. My name is Rose and I'm joined by Amy, and together we'll be guiding you through a sort of yoga and beer pairing. It'll be kind of like a sensory adventure where we're sipping on beer and we'll also have a little workout. But before I begin, I just wanted to give you a bit of background and guidance for setting up your space. And why we're doing this. First off, we're doing yoga and beer because Sufferfest is a brand for athletes, and what better way to enjoy a beer with that in mind than with a nice little workout. And it's always fun to find a sort of harmony in activity and beverage, and I'm really excited for us to embark upon this. Secondly, we hope that you'll follow along with beer, but it's not mandatory, of course. If you are following along, we suggest getting nice and set up before we embark. A yoga mat wherever you're comfortable. Beer can and glass, I have mine set up behind me, which you'll see pretty soon. Amy's nice and set up too, so you can see kind of what we've got going on. And if you have it handy, a full unopened six-pack, because we will use it as a prop for a few poses. So today we are featuring the Sufferfest mix pack, which has FKT Pale Ale with blackcurrant and sea salt. It has Gut Check IPA with apple cider vinegar, and it has Head Start Stout with coffee and coconut. So we've got some delicious beers to try along the way. I'll be following along with Amy's instruction, and we'll be taking pauses and holding poses along the way for sips and stats on the beer. So we're gonna incorporate both those things. After our flow and wrap up, I'm also joined by Ashley, who will be taking any questions that you have for us at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Amy, our instructor. She'll start us off with some warm-ups, and after she introduces herself, I'll kind of dive into what Sufferfest is all about. So yeah, take it away, Amy.
Your yoga instructor. It's fine, you can certify, don't worry about it. It's just a little passionate hobby on the side. I've been practicing yoga for about 10 years, and I've been certified for about 3 years now. My yoga certification is Raja 200 hour through lineage of the Raja. If you don't know what that means, doesn't matter. It means I know what I'm doing, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So I'm going to lead us through a short warm up. And while I do that, just note that we're starting by warming up our joints. One of my favorite ways to warm up my joints is to practice your wrist movement, opening your wrist. So grab that first beer when we started with our FKT Pale Ale, and very gently pull it down. Loosen that. So feel free to follow along, like Rose said, with our beverages today, or just follow along with the flow. If you've never heard of Sufferfest and this is your first introduction, cheers and enjoy. Hopefully you learn along the way. So again, I will start with warm up. Feel free to follow along with Rose is doing for my podcast with the stream behind Sufferfest company and start talking about our creative.
Sweet. So thank you, Amy. I will be following along as well. But Ashley, I think it would actually be better if you kept Amy's video on while I just kind of talk in the background, maybe.
Okay.
But we could reassess that later if we don't like how it looks once we look at the recording. But yeah. So Sufferfest is a company that was founded in 2016 in the Bay Area. Sufferfest strikes me immediately as being an interesting name. So I always like to start with the definition of what a Sufferfest is. And it's actually an activity whereby all participants endure, deteriorate, and languish, but that co-misery that everyone experienced will have been a great time. So the founder of Sufferfest is actually a super badass lady named Caitlin Landsberg, and she's always identified as an athlete. And after college, she found herself immersed in the community of endurance running in the Bay Area. And she started noticing that at the end of the finish line, when she was participating in competitions and everything like this, there was always like a brewery or a beer that met the athletes at the end of that Sufferfest. And she noticed that those beers were kind of not working with her idea of what it means to be like a well-deserved and well-earned beer. And she started reconsidering like what the concept of a functional beer might be. Because a lot of those low calorie, low carb beers that were on the market back in 2016 were just kind of lackluster, and she wanted to kind of challenge it. So then as things happened, she actually was diagnosed with an autoimmune deficiency where she had to cut out gluten from her diet. So that kind of was the impetus that drove her to just take things into her own hands. She was actually gifted a brewing course for one of her birthdays by her partner, and he challenged her, hey, like, make a functional beer, make something yummy. And her being an athlete, whenever that word is thrown around, a challenge, she had to accept. So she started brewing beers, and a lot of them were not very good. It's just kind of, how it is being a beginning brewer. But eventually she got her recipes nailed down, and she began canning them and basically going around door to door trying to kind of sell her beer, like framing it as a functional beer. So functional meaning that it's full in flavor, but it's lower calorie and lighter ABV. So if you're an athlete or someone who is trying to just watch their diet, it won't kind of like break the bank, and you can still enjoy something at the end of whatever finish line you find yourself at. As Caitlin was studying beer and learning more and more about it, she actually became super passionate about its microbiology and its replenishing qualities. Beer actually does have protein, it has water, and it's not the worst beverage, believe it or not. It's actually quite a good one. So she started brewing these gluten-removed beers. I'll tell you guys more about what gluten removed means later on, but the company was actually acquired by Sierra Nevada in 2019, and now Sufferfest, instead of just being found in the Bay Area and a few other states, it's actually found nationwide. So there's a lot of cool events and athletes that Sufferfest supports. So you might find that Sufferfest tent at a competition sometime post-COVID. But Sufferfest also has a super cool blog that I've been enjoying lately, and it's called Fair Play. So that's just really showcasing female athletes or female identifying athletes who accomplish really great things. So if you have a great story, or if you know of someone who has a great story, or if you enjoy some really awesome stories about great athletes, then go ahead and check it out. But right now we're gonna get all athletic and start our flow. So Amy, take it away.
Perfect timing. So before we really get into our flow today, and hopefully you feel a little bit more limber and ready to roll. Most yoga classes that I teach start with it's just a sound of peace and unity. So instead of an om today, I'd like to start with hums. So normally we start om. And feel free to do this with me. If you probably hear people watching you, do it in your head. It's just as good. Big inhale, and on the exhale, ha. All right, top of your mat. Keep your glass with you. We're going to start with some sun salutations to get warmed up. So, on the inhale, extend your arms up, and slip back bend any amount. Forward fold. Place your glass on the floor, hands to the mat. Right foot back, knee down, gaze up. We'll hold it here for just a minute, just long enough to take a sip. Step back to plank. Lower your knees, chest and chin. Slide forward to cobra.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we should have introduced FKT a little bit more before we started sipping it, or?
Yeah, so there are some sections after the sun salutation that provide longer pauses for you to dip into the beer a little bit more.
Right.
But let's make a note of that because we might want to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe just being a little bit more intentional about pouring it on camera, maybe.
Sure.
Cool.
Okay, hips up and back, downward facing dog. Step your right foot forward, left knee down. Come together at the top of your mat. Grab your glass, extend your arms up, and slide back bend any amount. Back to heart center. One more time on the other side. So arms up and back. Forward fold. Place your glass on the floor, hands to the mat. Left foot back, knee down, knees up. Step back to plank. Drop your knees, chest and chin. And pull forward to cobra. Hips up and back, downward facing dog. Left foot forward, right knee down, gaze up. Step together at the top of your mat. Grab your glass, extend your arms up. A slight back bend, and back to heart center. So now that you've warmed up a little bit, in our next sequence, we're going to have some intentional pauses in some of our postures. This is where Rose might come in and talk a little bit about the beer that we're drinking at KT. Give you a little bit of some tasting notes and some history about the beer. And we'll move on. So, arms up and back. Again, any amount. Forward fold. Place your glass on the ground, hands to the mat. Step all the way back to plank this time. As you hover over your glass, just admire that beautiful pink color. Now shift your weight forward slightly. Lower halfway, chaturanga. Just enough to smell that beer. And upward facing dog. Up and back, downward facing dog. Now step your left foot forward. Drop your back knee, Chaturanga on the left side. Rose, take it away for some tasting notes as we raise our glass and sink our hips forward.
Yeah, so FKT, you'll notice the color is quite pink. That's actually coming from black currant. Black currant isn't one of those fruits that you see a whole lot over here on the West Coast, at least. Like, you can't find it in the supermarket very easily. But it is a nice little berry-looking fruit that has a nice kind of fuchsia hue to it. And I like to kind of imagine it as like a blueberry and grape hybrid or something like that. It's full of antioxidants and it's nice and tart and juicy. So this is technically a pale ale, but it has that black currant added. It also has sea salt added, so that's why it has that little bit of like saltiness at the end. So the intention and the idea between using these ingredients is that salt is one of these things that's really replenishing. It's an electrolyte. So after you sweat a lot after a workout, this helps provide some of those nutrients that your body craves.
Because we're going to then go into lizard pose right after this. And you'll be able to continue talking. Okay.
I'm sorry, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I don't know what you said. You're very echoey.
You don't want to be in like Yasana for 5 minutes while you talk about FKT. So if you could shorten it to like 2 or 3 sentences of tasting notes, then we can move on to lizard pose and we can pick back up.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Let me grab a pen.
From Yasana, place your hands on the inside of your left foot, heel tilt to the outer edge of your mat. Bring your back knee, lizard preparation pose. Now there's a couple modifications to lizard, and we're going to plan to hang out here for a few minutes while Rose tells us a little more about this delicious beer. So drop your knee. You're more than welcome to stay here and bring your beer to you. I would like to go a little bit further into this stretch and go to my beer. Whatever's comfortable for you, as Rose is going to give us a few more notes about this beer.
Yeah, so just kind of jumping back into it, it's nice and balanced and fruity without being overly sweet or overly salty. So I kind of forgot where I left off on it, so I could put some more tasting notes about salt or whatever, but FKT is kind of what we consider our flagship at Sufferfest, one of our best-selling beers and one of our favorites for sure.
Definitely a favorite. Let's raise back up, step back to plank, shake your legs out a little bit. So from plank, shift your weight forward, lower halfway, chaturanga, upward facing dog, and hips up and back for downward facing dog. Let's even it out, hit Yasana on the other side, so right foot forward, left knee down. You can grab your glass as you push your hips down and forward. Gaze could be up. Or if you're feeling a little bit more passive today, just take it here and enjoy your beverage. So right after this, we'll be switching to your next beer, which is going to be gut check. So while we're up here hanging out with Yasana, go ahead and get your next glass ready. Grab that gut check again. You don't have to finish every sample. Hands to the inside of your right foot, heel toe to the outer edge of your mat. Tap those toes and rock back and forth for lizard preparation. And again, any modification here, you can bring the beer to you, or go a little bit deeper into the position, and you can go to the beer. When you're done with your FKT, set that glass well under the way so it doesn't become an obstruction later. When you're ready, arms up, set back to plank. I lost where I was. Weight forward, lower halfway for chaturanga. Upward facing dog. And let's take a nice break here. Just lower into a modified zinc pose to pour your gut check IPA. Now this one, I believe, is brewed with apple cider vinegar, which has some pretty unique health benefits on its own. Once you put it in beer, we can't claim to have health benefits anymore because it's alcohol products, but it doesn't mean it doesn't taste great. So I'll just move on to the next portion of our flow. And we'll take some pauses again to talk about this beer, some of the tasting notes, and maybe even answer the questions you guys might have. You can certainly throw those in the chat box there. So back where we were, with gut check ready to go. Place your palms on the mat, hips up and back for downward facing dog. we're going to move into our warrior series. So left foot forward, your back foot will rotate about 45 degrees. Grab that glass, lift it way up to the sky, sink your hips forward, warrior one. And open to the side. Bring that glass straight forward. Rotate your back foot up so it's perpendicular to your front foot. Arms up to the side for warrior two. You can hang out here, take a couple sips. Rose, anything that you want to say about that check?
Well, it's only 100 calories per serving, which is quite nice and light. I really like how the apple cider vinegar gives it a little bit of tang, a little bit of tartness, kind of brings out that citrusiness of the hops as well.
Let's take a moment to really observe that color. So shift your weight forward, all the way forward, and place that glass on the floor, maybe about a foot in front of your front foot. Let's at this time to move your prop. Mine is a 6-pack. Just a little slightly adjacent to your front foot. So extend your front foot, interlace your fingers behind your back. Shift your weight forward for a toppling tree pose. No toppling yogis. So extend that back leg and mount. And just gaze into the beautiful color of this bright beer. Left foot to the box. Great arm extends up for half moon pose. If you're really looking to practice some advanced ear yogi, grab your glass while you're in half moon pose and slowly extend that up to the sky. Now, without spilling your beer, scoop all the way back to warrior two. Now, really challenge yourself here. Sink an inch deeper. And Rose, could you tell us a few more things about this gut check IPA?
Yeah, I mean, it's good for your gut. That's why it's called gut check. I mean, again, we can't say it's good for your gut, but apple cider vinegar is good for your gut. So some of you might want to experiment with what this pairs with too. Typically, you wouldn't pair a bitter pale ale or IPA with a nice light flavor like fish, but this one would actually pair quite nicely with it, just because of that citrus and that tang. And you can get pretty experimental with it and what you pair it with. It's one of these things with pairing where it's either similar flavors or different flavors that are going to contrast and bring out all of the deliciousness of this beer.
Awesome. So place your glass on the floor. Bring your foot set back to plank. Shift your weight forward. This time on your chaturanga, really take a nice deep breath when you get over your beer. So you kind of pick up that ACV aroma. Upward facing dog. Hips up and back for downward facing dog. And let's be warriors on the other side. So right foot forward. Grab your glass. Left foot will extend about 45 degrees to your mat. Arms up. Warrior one. Open your arms. Rotate that back leg to 90 degrees to your front foot. Warrior two. Again, you gotta hang out here with your left hip back again. Shift your weight forward. Place your glass all the way up with the front foot. Shift that off to the other side. Interlace your fingers behind your back. Shift your weight forward to toppling tree pose. So, over action in your spine, extend your back leg and hang out. arm to your front, left arm to the side, active pose. And bring up the advanced yogis. Or maybe you're not an advanced yogi, but just want to challenge today. Carefully in one swoop. Drop that back away. Warrior two. Might be a good time to answer your questions if you don't have tasting notes from Gotcha.
I don't really have any other additional tasting notes for gut check.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting beer that I would maybe not pick out for myself.
So let's shift our weight forward. Place that glass on the floor in front of you. Step back to plank. And is this where we open? Yes, so somewhere here we want to open. So, all right. Plank, shift your weight forward. Lower half plank chaturanga. All the way to the ground. First week's pose. We're ready to run our third beer, and most of our hard work is done. So we're going to move into a nice and refreshing, one of my favorite beers out of this line, Head Start Stout, brewed with coffee and coconut. Rose is going to tell you from the source, give you some tasting notes. The hard part I always find about this beer is it tastes so good. I want to drink it like in the morning. It almost tastes like nitro coffee with a little bit of coconut for me. So, as we move into this last beer, we hope you're enjoying yourself. But let's get to it. So, palms to the mat, extend it up, and back or downward facing dog. And this time, walk your hands forward. Your feet forward to the top of your mat. So in your forward fold. Grab your glass, extend your arms up, slight back bend in and out, and back to heart center. We're going to go into tree pose, which is a balance posture. I recommend having a here, not open, but full. So grab your glass. Tree pose is the balance posture. We're going to start balancing on our left side. So your right foot can come to the inside of your ankle. If you're new to this pose, we always stick our knee. We don't want to put pressure on that joint. So you can go up to your inner thigh. Just hang up here. For those advanced yogis, if you want a different kind of challenge, grab the back here and have that unopened. Take that right foot into half lotus pose. And try to balance.
Just put a little glue on it before.
All right, same thing on the other side. So, balancing on the right, your left foot can come to the inside of your ankle, inside of your calf. And you can try that. Here we go, the challenge for a half lotus on the left side.
so sweet of you that you would like me to talk at this pose because it's awful. But Head Start Stout, we've definitely got a nice roasty toastiness that's coming from the malts. But like I mentioned before, we do make gluten-removed beers. So even though it has all that rich malty flavor and aroma, it doesn't have those gluten molecules that typically are associated with roasted barley. So Brewer's Clerics goes into the fermentation tank when the yeast does. And what it does is it just breaks down those gluten molecules into smaller peptides so it does not disturb the guts of our friends with gluten intolerances. Yeah, tasting notes, of course, coffee.
I'm sorry about him having a good time. Thank goodness for fearless. Good for cold. And stretch that out a little bit. We're going to try another balance posture. Let's see. All right, so let's place our beer about maybe a foot and a half in front of your mat. We're going to move into crow pose. Now, if you've never done crow pose before and you want to challenge yourself, we have some modifications for you. If you are just into the beer right now, have a seat, you could child pose, or voice, whatever feels comfortable, and sit on that beer. But palms flat on the mat. Your knees are going to come from the outer of your triceps or all the way up into your arm. I find that really helps my balance. Up your, engage your abs. I like to go nice and high on my 10 toes. The key is to look forward, not down. If you look down, you're going to go down by default. So look forward at your ear, right? Slowly shift your weight forward. Moving at that beautiful beer that starts out. Maybe lift one leg. Forward. Try to challenge yourself and lift both. Just focus on that beer. Whenever you're ready, toes back to the mat. Rest in child's pose. Now draw a line with your nose down the center of your mat. That sounds weird, but draw a line down your mat. And your palms to posture. And after that sweet crow pose, we definitely need a reward.
Yeah, something else to mention about this Head Start, though, is the fact that it's brewed with equilateral coffee. And equilateral is important to us because they are a local coffee roaster, and they were actually one of our first retailers to carry our beer. So that's exciting that we still have that partnership, and it's all fair trade coffee beans that are sourced with intention, relating back to our certified B Corp status as well.
Let's go up into tabletop position. Grab your glass and put it about halfway down your mat. And we're going to move into cow face posture. Looks much more glamorous than it sounds. So, right leg actually crosses behind your left. I would like. But windshield wiper your legs out like a pizza slice. And sit in between that space that you created behind your legs. Now, if you need a prop, that's where this Sufferfest box will come into play. You can put that behind you and just have a seat zone. This is a great time to have last few sips. Can you inhale that beautiful coconut? Such a right amount of coconut too. Look balances out the coffee nicely.
Yeah, it should be mentioned that it's coconut water as well, instead of like coconut flakes or pulp or anything like that, which is unusual for brewers, but it also gives it that replenishing aspect as well. Plus the nuttiness just melts with that with the coffee flavor in a really nice roasty way.
Now place that glass down. This is going to be a bit of a party trick, okay? Shift your weight forward, balance up on your toes, and then just walk your hands around in a circle. And then sit down in that new space you created, and voila, your opposite knee is on top. That's too complicated. You can just do this. This is a fun little party trick. So
it's almost like breakdancing.
Any inanimate object. I know how to do yoga circles on the mat.
You also are that much closer to being a break dancer.
Double win. All right, so extend your legs out in front of you. Maybe shaking on a little bit. Janu Shirsasana. So, right foot comes to the inside of your left leg. Arms up. And you sit forward any amount. So, if you have a lot of space here, maybe that glass goes on the opposite side of your foot, right? If that's the case, keep your toes flexed toward your face. Don't want feet on your glasses. Doesn't work well with coconut water. If you don't have that much space in your hamstring, or it's just not working for you today, go ahead and just hang out here. This is a really passive posture. It's a great posture. When you're ready, extend your glass up, and let's just switch sides. So left foot on the inside of your right thigh, and extend forward any amount. And return to center or sit up. Shake your legs out. We're going to take a modified seated Savasana today. So I like to do a very wide Padmasana. So not quite all the way up like this. We want kind of almost a diamond shape. If you look at the arches of your feet, it's this beautiful cradle for your head, right? Never noticed that before, but now you do. Interlace your fingers with the Hala Mudra. And if you just kind of slip your hands over the top of your toes, like an elbow tap, that can provide some leverage for you to bring your elbows in front of your shins. This is actually called 5-point posture or star posture. And then you can rest your head in the space that you created with the arches of your feet. Now, if that's too much or it's putting some strain on your lower back, this is really meant to be a passive posture. This is our modified Savasana, so you shouldn't be holding tension anywhere. So, grab that earprop, place it right on your feet. Place your forehead there. This is our last posture of our yoga gear practice today. No, it was a lot of fun. Maybe you got a little bit of a workout. I know there were some times where I was sweating. Staying careful for a million years. That's part of the joy of a Sufferfest. Think about how great that forward fold felt. Finally, right? As you're taking really nice, slow, deep breaths here, in this very passive posture, just take a quick body scan and notice if there's any tension anywhere. maybe your lower back. Then you rest there and relax down. Your shoulders. More attention to your shoulders. Relax your shoulders. Your fingers are holding on the grass. Relax those fingers. As we finish our practice today, thank you guys for joining us for our very first inaugural Sufferfest Year Challenge sequence, whatever you might want to call it. Have a good day.
All right. Yeah, I haven't really thought of any closing remarks just because I didn't know how I was going to feel with like such a slowdown, but cracked open 3 beers. Hopefully you have someone nearby to share them with you, and we hope you'll tune in again, and we'll see if you are more balanced with your beer next time.
Ooh, nice. I like that.
It's a challenge. All right. So I feel like timing was pretty good on that, but I think the best next step would just be to watch this and then kind of take our notes and reconvene next week.
Yeah, also this video.
Cool. Sounds good. Right. I can't hear
I'm
you.
trying to unmute you, Amy, but the whole time this thing, where you go to click the unmute button, it just 10 minutes behind.
Unmute. There we go. Yeah, that's way better. The other audio sounded like you were talking through a tin can or something.
I swear I was trying.
Let me know if you want me to record just the session, just the yoga flow, if that would be more helpful to practice with instead of this whole recording that we did.
I think this whole recording thing will actually be just fine because then it's the realistic pauses that we would be taking. So it's totally fine.
Cool.
Awesome.
Right.
Cool.
All right, well, I'll get that converted and sent over to you. And if you have any questions, make notes and either shoot them to me in the chat or we can talk about them next week for more practice.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And thank you, Ashley and Mason, for joining us.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.